America's greatest rock and roll band.
Aerosmith are the quintessential American hard rock and roll band.
Aerosmith are the ultimate and the epitome of American hard rock.
They call Aerosmith America's greatest rock and roll band because that's pretty much what they are.
They're known as America's greatest rock and roll band, and that's become legend, it's become tradition, it's become fact because it's legend and tradition.
Nobody really upped the ante in the way Aerosmith did and really, you know, got in your face and just projected themselves.
No other band has had quite such a ride, I don't think. And also it's hard to think of another band with quite the same longevity that Aerosmith have had in that process. Also, I think they encapsulate so many staples of music: rock, metal, R&B, blues, soul, even rap.
Everything that went before them is focused through them. Everything which has subsequently happened has come from them. So they are really the definition of American hard rock in all its colours, all its shades, the whole spectrum.
If you wanted to define American hard rock and roll at its best, then look at Aerosmith.
Aerosmith got signed to Columbia through basically gigging a hell of a lot in the Boston area, in that part of America. And I believe the deal they got was a fairly low-key one. And certainly when their debut album came out in 1973, it was called Aerosmith. And the whole attitude from the record label was one of indifference. In fact, the whole album was treated indifferently from beginning to end in a way. It wasn't well produced. On top of which it was released on the same day as Springsteen's debut, and that got a heavy push from the same label, Columbia. Therefore Aerosmith suffered quite badly, which I think really showed how little care and attention Columbia were paying to the band at the time. They were a low budget band, rock and roll, let's see what happens, we don't really care about them. Amazing when you consider that debut had Mama Kin and Dream On, both of which have become classic Aerosmith standards subsequently, but at the time Columbia didn't either know what they had or care what they had.
Every time I look in the mirror, all these lines on my face getting clearer. The past is gone. Midnight, dust to dawn.
Aerosmith's debut album, the self-titled debut album, actually kind of snuck out, and I don't think many people really took too much notice of it at the time.
It was quite a while before the Aerosmith debut actually took off. It actually wasn't a great success and it had very poor reviews. The media likened it to being a second-rate Rolling Stones. This was a comparison that was to dog Aerosmith actually right through their careers up into the 90s really. I think it was largely because of Steven Tyler's facial resemblance to Mick Jagger. Apart from anything else, so there was clearly a Stones influence, but it wasn't that strong.
America needed a Rolling Stones of their own. They needed a homegrown Rolling Stones, but they still needed a little bit of convincing. And they managed to convince them a bit with the hit single, which was Dream On, the ballad, which, you know, actually got them noticed.
It took the single Dream On really to kind of catapult them into their sort of fame module, so to speak. But even that was a minor hit in the States, really. I think it was top 60, something like that. So their beginnings, you know, I think people always assumed that Aerosmith were this enormous band, this enormous stadium rock band from day one. But in fact, it took a lot of hard work and a lot of albums, 2 or 3 albums really, before they became into that picture. They became the arena rockers that we know today.
Nobody knows where it comes and where it goes. I know it's everybody's sin. You got to know how to.
Dream On was the first single, and it was also the first of many Aerosmith ballads to become lodged in the public consciousness. But it wasn't a great success at the outset. It reached number 59 in the Billboard chart.
Dream On was released as a single and got to, I think, the lower reaches of the chart, 59, something like that in America, made minor impact. So that they might have just basically expanded their fan base a little bit, albeit probably more by going out and touring on the back of the album than from radio play or promotion on the back of the record itself.
I sing with me, sing for the year, sing for laughter, sing for the tear. Sing with me, just for the year. Maybe tomorrow the Lord tell you
Well, the debut album's centrepiece really is Dream On. It's the quintessential Aerosmith ballad. It's in many ways a quintessential rock ballad, certainly of 70s arena rock, American rock. And it's a brilliant song.
The other big track on the album, I guess, was Mama Kin, which was more a snapshot of what they became, in the sense that it was a hard rocking thing, but with a little bit of sophistication behind it. It wasn't just a thrash. And Stephen loved it so much that he actually went out and got a tattoo on his bicep with Ma Kin. You know, he loved it that much.
well, it ain't easy, live like a chip say, tell you honey how I feel. I've been dreaming, floating down, streaming, losing touch with all was real. Oh, lover, keeping on the cover, never knowing where you'll be at. Yeah, well, you've been fading, always operating, keep in touch with Mama Kin.
Mama Kin really is a template for the Aerosmith sound, you know, that really raunchy R&B strutting sound that we know and love. And I think also, you know, the people tend to associate Aerosmith with a lot of ballads these days, so they can trot out Mama Kin, you know, in the midst of you know, the very wafty tunes that they kind of stand by these days. And it reminds people, you know, that that Aerosmith, you know, how they stood out. They were the bad boys from Boston, you know, and they still are to a certain extent. So that's why those old tunes still stand up, I think.
Keep in touch with Mama Kin. Tell her where you gonna be. Live on our show fantasy. Sleeping that sucking wind. Yeah, keep in touch with Mama Kin. I'll tell her where you gonna be. Live on our fantasy.
No matter how much you might think that the debut album perhaps was a bit of a damp squib, in retrospect there's always 2 or 3 tracks that really stand out and hark back to their heritage. So you've got Dream On, which is a very aspirational, very American thing, you know, dream on until your dreams come true. You know, it's a whole American ethic, isn't it, really? So on the one hand you've got that very wafty ballad, and then you've got Mama Kin, which is like the, you know, the supreme strutting rhythm and blues Aerosmith that we know and love.
They will remain in the set, the Aerosmith set, forever, I guess, because between them they are the 2 cornerstones of what Aerosmith are. You know, it's the hard Mama Kin and the soft Dream On, and without the one there couldn't be the other, in the same way without the Perry there couldn't be the Tyler. You know, the 2 needed one another. And in a way, those ballads which sold a lot of records are the things that bankroll them in order to be able to do the rocking stuff. Without the ballads they wouldn't be able to be as big a band as they are and allow themselves the kind of luxury, if you will, of rocking out.
Keep in touch with Mama Kin. Tell her where you gonna be. In not your fantasy. Sleeping in the sunny Keep in touch with Mama Kin.
Their first album is quite underrated really, because it's more of a loose, it's not so much of a a sort of riffing, powerful riffing album, but it's quite a sort of funky little, you know, looser kind of rock and roll album. So it's more Rolling Stones. There's some brilliant songs there, like One Way Street, that are kind of jammed out. Mama Kin is obviously another absolute classic, which Guns N' Roses recorded as well.
What it did was mark out their territory, and subsequently, when you look back and realise they had two bona fide classics on that debut album, which in 3 years' time, i.e. 1976, was finally released or re-released by Columbia with a bit of a push. It's quite amazing to think that no one realised what they had at the time.
Everything about it works. It's not their best album, and although it wasn't a huge seller, it was very much a you know, a really credible first album.
Get Your Wings didn't do much better as an album for Aerosmith than their debut, which was self-titled. In fact, Get Your Wings, their second album, came out in '74. Again, to a lot of indifference commercially, it didn't really chart, but it did have certain things going for it. One, it was the first time they worked with Jack Douglas, who was to be a crucial producer for them during the 1970s. Two, the songs on the album were tremendous. In fact, I'm still amazed to this day that Get Your Wings didn't do so much better than it did at the time. You had tracks that subsequently people who are Aerosmith fans know and love, like Seasons of Wither, Pandora's Box, Same Old Song and Dance, and it was also the introduction of the Aerosmith logo. It does look like it was drawn by a 7-year-old with no artistic talent whatsoever, but you can see the start of the Aerosmith wings and the A. That's where it really began. So in a way, Aerosmith's recorded career truly began with Get Your Wings.
It's a really deep and underrated record. I mean, it's got a lot of things going for it, but again, it's kind of been forgotten, just in the sense that because of what came after it, immediately after it.
Leave all the things that you love behind. I was leaving all the things that I love behind. You of all of the things that you learned from tears, honey, that knowledge is there but the years. Voices scream, nightmares seems, reals the dream. Hey, Joe Perry!
Toys in the Attic was Aerosmith's third album, and this one really was the album that sort of blew the doors off for Aerosmith. Their rise up until that point had been slow and steady, the media very keen to write them off again as Stones copyists. But by the time they did their third album, people had started to realise that they were the real thing. And also by the time they did Toys in the Attic, they had a really good set of songs on that particular album, which they backed up live fantastically well.
Because of their live profile growing as well, Toys in the Attic became their first really, really big hit.
Toys in the Attic was their first top 20 album in America. So this was the point where they became a national band and became known on the national stage and increased their audience sufficiently to become an arena act, which they have remained for the rest of their career.
It was just the right set of songs at the right time, and it really broke Aerosmith through to the next level.
Toys in the Attic's title track really sounds how the band looked in the photographs. You know, when you see Steven Tyler with his stripy costume, just, you know, ripped down to his crotch, and he's got all his scarves wrapped around the microphone. He's got all his girls, like, you know, with their more leg than a bucket of chicken and all this stuff going on. You hear Toys in the Attic and that sounds like the photograph you're looking at. That's what you aspire to when you're sitting in your kind of garret wishing you were a rock star as well. You don't aspire to the guy kind of, you know, singing this sweet ballad. You want to be that guy who has toys in the attic, who is full tilt bozo and mad and getting more drugs and more ass than anyone else on the planet. And yeah, that was Aerosmith.
Toys in the Attic, yeah, I mean, it completely defines Aerosmith, and it identified them as a band with their own signature sound. It just was loaded up with great songs as well, and it just delivered so many great moments that, you know, Toys in the Attic itself, what a brilliant opening track. It's a pile-driving, kind of fast rock and roll song, but it's still got, the thing about it is, no matter how fast Aerosmith played sometimes, and they did, you know, smoke it a few times, they always had a groove there. So it was like, it never sounded just stupid frenzy of, you know, it never sounded too white, basically.
Aerosmith took their roots from blues, from rock and roll, and from Motown. They were always not just a rock and roll band, but they were a rock and roll band in the widest possible sense. They always had soul and funk elements. They always embraced those. So what Toys in the Attic did really was, I think, the first time they really took them and consistently made those influences their own on songs that actually transcended those. And with Sweet Ocean and Walk This Way, they were very much a band that can actually bring in all those elements together and make it sound like Aerosmith. Make it sleazy in the Aerosmith way, make it funky in the Aerosmith way, make it rock and roll in the Aerosmith way, and also make it slightly metallic in the Aerosmith way.
Backstory of all the time I need to come to talk to my daddy's friend. Mr. Jane seen all of you down on the bump and showed him a change in your way. Man, she and Lee was a real young Peter, talked about the reminisce. Well, the best thing I love it with a sister and a cousin, started with a little kiss like this.
The thing with Walk This Way is that it has this kind of bizarre tempo going on. You know, it kind of boom baps and stuff. It's not like a straightforward, stiff-assed piece of Caucasian rock, like so much of it was at the time. It was funky, it had soul.
One of the best songs you'll ever hear about masturbation, and it's such a funky rock song. And you can, it really isn't rocket science, is it, just for Run DMC to go, that's good, because Steven Tyler's already mapped out the raps for you.
In rock terms, I believe that Walk This Way was unusual because I can't think of another band who were doing something similar. Any band who tried it, a white band, inevitably sounded like a white band doing a black style of music. Sure, you had people like James Brown who were doing that sort of scat, rap or whatever. However, what Aerosmith did is make it sound authentic.
But you know, Joe Perry rather, is absolutely ambivalent about it as usual. He sits there very cool. I asked him about it a couple of years ago and he just said, well, I just saw it as rap came from the blues, just like rock and roll. I couldn't understand why the two things wouldn't work together perfectly anyway, and there you go. It was as easy as that for Joe, but the way he talks, you know, everything's easy.
You compare the original 1975 recording of Walk This Way, and you compare it to the Aerosmith Run DMC version. Now, when you're saying that you're taking a song that's ostensibly a rock song and you're then moving it into a urban black music area, you're thinking it might be funkier. It's not. It's the original's way funkier than that. It's brilliant kind of scat, proto-rap vocals from Tyler, wonderful rhythmic sense. I mean, they had that sense of gritty, what the original sense of R&B was. They definitely had that in their music, and they played some funky shit, as they say.
They actually made you think, not this is a white band trying to sound like a black band. It actually made you think this is a great rock and roll song. It's a great song. But it was completely unusual because it was Steven Tyler rapping, literally rapping as we would know it today. hence the reason why a decade later Run DMC covered it and resurrected Aerosmith's career in doing so. But my favourite track on that album at the time was Sweet Emotion.
Sweet Emotion, probably the great Aerosmith song of them all. Everybody loves a song that has somebody with the vocoder thing, with a talking guitar. That's just awesome from the start. Amazing, trippy kind of intro, and then what a riff that is. It's funky, it's loose, and it's also got Steven Tyler's greatest lyric and arguably the greatest line ever in the history of rock, which is, "A sweet talking mama with a face like a gent said my get up and go, must have got up and went." How can you beat that?
Sweet talking mama with a face like a gent. I said my get up and go, must have got up and went. Oh, well, I got good news, she's a real good liar. Well, call her backstage boogie, set your pants on fire. Likewise.
I guess Sweet Emotion is the big standout track for the majority of people who listen to Toys in the Attic. It's the big ballad. It's once again, it's the thing that sold Aerosmith to America in the first place. It's the dream on from that album.
And considering it was written about the strain in relationship between Tyler and Perry, caused by Joe Perry's girlfriend, later wife at the time, Elise, it's quite funny that Steven Tyler took something as personal as that in the band and gave it such a public domain.
When I pulled into town in a police car, yeah, you did anything, you took it just a little too far.
Toys in the Attic was another example of Aerosmith perhaps ratcheting it up a little bit. But I think it did have a couple of dubious tracks on it. Uncle Salty, big 10-inch record, you know. It wasn't quite the quality of the subsequent album, Rocks. But it was well received.
It also reflected what they were like at the time. Toys in the Attic means pretty crazy, and that's what they were. They did have toys in the attic by their own admission. And it's funny, looking back on those albums, Tyler has said that they were doing an enormous amount of drugs at the time, to the extent that he listens to those albums now and he knows they were doing 30 or 40 takes of just about everything. He says when he listens to the albums now, he doesn't really so much hear the songs as he hears the drugs that went into the songs.
Rocks is certainly the album that is regarded as the pinnacle of Aerosmith's achievement in the very important 1970s era. It is impossible to exaggerate how big an act they became in America as a result of that.
If someone of the pedigree of Slash says that Rocks is one of the greatest rock albums of all time, you don't need someone like me banging on about it, but I will anyway. It is start to finish. Oh, it's just a grimy, dirty, sleazy rock and roll album.
It started really strongly with Back in the Saddle and just kept going with Last Child, Rats in the Cellar, Combination, Lickin' a Promise. Those titles just roll off the tongue because they're great tracks. And it was a cohesive unit as well, and it really hit. And it was also probably Jack Douglas's best work in his time as Aerosmith's producer.
At that point, he got the absolute best out of the band. That album and Toys in the Attic, they were sounding like the Aerosmith that we now know and love. But at the time they wrote the songs on Rocks and recorded the songs on Rocks and toured those songs, it was the pinnacle for them. All the planets had aligned, shall we say.
It was when everything happened together. And it was a time of, they had a lot of energy, a lot of vitality. All the creativity seemed to be really coming to the fore, to really bubbling well. And it was almost as if everything reached a peak at the right time in the studio. And they came up with something that was really, truly special. The momentum of Toys in the Attic and the subsequent exhaustive touring meant that it had a huge fan base ready for it as well. So as soon as it hit, everyone just embraced it. And subsequently, people like Slash, James Hetfield from Metallica said how important that album was in their formative years as rock fans. Slash actually credits Rocks for being the album that really got him into rock in the first place.
Rocks is an album that vastly influenced bands like Guns N' Roses and that whole generation of bands that came out in the mid to late 80s. It's a hugely important slice of rock history.
Checkmate, honey, meet you at your own damn game. Yeah. I said no dice, honey, I'm living on the astral plane. Hey. Well, my feet's on the ground, my head's going down the drain. Yeah. Well, heads are with tails you lose. Lord, it's such a crime. Nowhere to draw the line.
Draw the Line was probably the start of a downturn in Aerosmith's career. Following on from Rocks, I'm not sure quite what they could have done that would have had everybody going, this is equally as good.
Draw the Line was something of a come down after the Twin Peaks, shall we say, of Rocks and Toys in the Attic. I think really the band were just starting to burn out. I mean, they had been touring non-stop. They had only stopped touring to make albums, and they'd been, you know, burning the candle at both ends. They weren't ready to make another album. The best thing about Draw the Line, I think, was the cover art with the amusing caricatures of the band. But musically, it wasn't that strong. Ironically, it was their fastest selling album at that point, but with the benefit of hindsight, it would seem that the cracks were starting to appear.
You don't care, I'm staying with me now. Heads are with tails you lose, Lord, it's such a crime. No dice, honey, you're the soul, the queen of the night. Checkmate, honey, you're the only one that's got to choose. Nowhere to draw the line.
Draw the Line, the first sign here that the drugs were having a detrimental effect on the band. I mean, where they recorded it in some isolated farmstead, you know, they were just getting completely trolleyed, firing semi-automatic weapons around. This is a period when Joe Perry and his wife or girlfriend at the time had their quarters in this big place that they were a residential studio. Their quarters were far away from everybody else, and apparently there was a week passed and nobody had seen Joe. And at that point they thought, do you think we should go and knock the door down to see if he's OD'd or something? I mean, that was the kind of... They were strung out and badly.
People often blame drugs for Draw the Line being such a mess, really. Joe Perry says of that period that they were no longer musicians dabbling in drugs. They were, you know, drug addicts dabbling in music, which, you know, is pretty true, I guess. And you can hear it on there, you know, it's a messy record.
They were having significant problems, some brought on by personality differences, others through habits and addictions. But Joe Perry once famously said the only connection between the 5 members of the band in the studio were through the headphones.
That was the beginning of the end, that period for them, in the sense that they were getting really, really screwed up. And where it worked on Rocks, it didn't so much work on Draw the Line.
Unfortunately, when they came to record Night in the Ruts, Joe Perry wasn't in a position to have his heart in it. By this time, both he and Steven Tyler were in a perilous state physically. Tyler was unable to work for long periods, studio time was being wasted, Tyler and Perry were falling out over every last thing, including allegedly the fact that Perry wouldn't share his drugs with Tyler, etc., etc. Perry, to his credit, did play some impressive slide guitar on that album, but they did a short tour before they finished recording the album and had another bust up, and Perry finally decided to walk out.
The band was so drugged up, you know, they were so out of it, basically. They become pretty much dysfunctional, and Joe's heart for whatever reason, just wasn't in it, you know, and things were beginning to disintegrate at a pretty alarming rate. I think it's remarkable, actually, that the album ever came out, to be honest with you, and it is of the quality that it is. You know, we're entering quite a dark period now in Aerosmith's career, and I think Night in the Ruts is an example of that, you know, and it's an example why they didn't manage to sustain that momentum that they'd established with Rocks.
Aerosmith without Joe Perry never made any sense. In fact, subsequently, a few years after he left, and he left during the sessions for Night in the Ruts, Aerosmith weren't quite the same band without him, and without Joe Perry, and subsequently without Brad Whitford, who quit as well, people didn't want to know.
They did nevertheless carry on, and they recorded Rock in a Hard Place with Crespo and a guy called Rick DeFay, who came in to replace Whitford.
An Aerosmith album without Brad Whitford and without Joe Perry, especially, well, it's inconceivable, isn't it? But it really did happen.
Critically, that was quite an acclaimed album, surprisingly. It didn't sell in great quantities, and it seemed that the public was running out of patience because they had, I think, Lightning Strikes was the single from that album, and it failed to chart. But they did have a couple of good tracks. Lightning Strikes, Jailbaits were classic Snaggletooth rockers, and a song called Joni's Butterfly, which was a really, you know, showed they weren't scared of experimentation. But the Aerosmith bubble had burst to an extent. It was not the same without Perry and Whitford. And Tyler, irrespective of the fact that Perry was gone, was still in a terrible state and getting worse. He told me he became virtually a street kid. By that, I assume he means he was actually just sleeping rough. He really was down and out. And Perry, although Perry wasn't in the band for much of this time, he was in an equally bad way.
Significantly, Joe Perry left his wife, Elisa, and kind of found himself out on a bit of a limb and began to reappraise what had gone on before with Aerosmith and kind of thought, well, hang on a minute, you know, what the hell happened to me? You know, these guys were my buddies. I'm not in this band anymore. What's going on? So I think that kind of really triggered the 1984 reunion. You know, the fact that Joe wasn't with Elisa kind of had, you know, started getting these fond memories actually about his time in Aerosmith, you know, and thought, well, you know, I should be back with my band of brothers again.
The Aerosmith reunion, the bringing back together of the five, as it were, was a real surprise. So I remember in 1984 when it was first mooted, talking to Tim Collins, who was Joe Perry's manager at the time with the Joe Perry Project and subsequently managed Aerosmith. And when the rumours first started that Tyler, Perry, Whitford, Hamilton and Kramer were going to work together again. And he said to me, yes, we're talking. We hope it's going to happen. The problem we've got is basically the drugs. And I've got to get them off the drugs to make this work. Otherwise there is no point. And I suppose from their point of view, what have we got to lose?
When Aerosmith got their lineup back together with Perry and Whitford, they also signed a new record deal with Geffen. So it was a new start of sorts. And naturally, they would have wanted to make a recording for Geffen, and Geffen doubtless would have expected that. So they kind of rushed back to the studio to make a new album, which turned out to be Done with Mirrors. Really, it was all too soon.
Done with Mirrors was Aerosmith's big comeback record that wasn't, because yes, they reformed, everyone got excited, but the thing is they were still pretty out there.
They were still trying to reconcile their differences and make creative decisions while still in the midst of drugs turmoil. Done with Mirrors was produced and released too hastily. The songs weren't really finished. But you know, like a lot of the Aerosmith mid-term albums, of which this was the last, it depends who you ask, because there are people getting into the band all the time. You ask John Bon Jovi what he thinks of Done with Mirrors and he'll give it a big thumbs up. So it was still quite an influential record, but it still wasn't the Aerosmith that we know and love. It still wasn't what they were capable of. We had to wait another few years for that. We had to wait for Perry and Tyler to become clean. That was the key to it all. Permanent Vacation, which came out in '87, was the dream comeback for Aerosmith. It was everything it needed to be and more.
Permanent Vacation was the proper Aerosmith comeback album because it had some written to be hit singles on it, but it had vibrancy about it. It sounded like they were interested.
Permanent Vacation is where Aerosmith really became classic. You know, they not only got their finger on the pulse of the contemporary rock of the day, they totally surpassed it. This was, you know, they took hair metal and they gave it balls of steel. They showed the kids how it should be done, and they were never better.
What they did do was swallow their pride and say, let's bring in outside songwriters to help. Desmond Child, Jim Vallance, Holly Knight all got involved with them to make some of the songs more commercial or more viable for the MTV generation. And of course, Dude Looks Like a Lady was the first single from it and took off like a rocket.
The standout tracks were Dude Looks Like a Lady, a little satire of the hair metal era that they were coming into. A bit rich from a guy who dressed in women's clothing pretty much most of his career, but we'll let it go.
Dude Looks Like a Lady was actually about Vince Neil of Motley Crue. It was written by Tyler about Vince. I think he'd gone into a bar somewhere and seen Vince surrounded by these, you know, this bevy of beauties or whatever, and he kind of thought, well, hang on a minute, how's this guy, you know, getting all the girls when he looks like one himself? So that's what inspired the song.
It's a very saucy pop rocker. It's got off-kilter lyrics, a great chorus that everyone can sing. It's one of those songs that you hear on the radio all the time. It's still very much in the public consciousness. It's never really gone away. Just a great pop rocker.
Aerosmith really became this all singing, all dancing band for the MTV generation that they hadn't been before. So great song, great video, you know, great melodies, very memorable chorus. It really reinvented Aerosmith, I think, you know, for that period of time, which is what they needed. It's what they really needed to you know, make, you know, Perry's reunion a success with the band.
What a funky lady! She like it, like it, like it, like it, like it, like it. Oh, she was a lady.
Dude Looks Like a Lady, it was fantastic. It was, you know, they were back and it was incorrigible as ever. It was just like the same old Aerosmith that gave you Walk This Way with its filthy lyrics, you know. It was really the Aerosmith you all wanted to hear. And they kind of came back, and at the time you had people like Bon Jovi and Def Leppard reigning supreme in the American charts with basically what was a watered down hair metal version of what Aerosmith were. And they kind of said, oh, yeah, we're back now, you know, thanks for keeping the fans warm for us, but you know, you can go back to New Jersey or Sheffield or wherever you're from and we'll take over, thank you very much, which is pretty much what they did.
Another reason for the success of that album was that Aerosmith showed that they were willing to work with outside collaborators like Desmond Child, who gave them a little bit of stardust. But they also showed that they didn't need to do that, you know, with songs like Ragdoll, which was some quintessential R&B influenced Aerosmith in the tradition of Walk This Way.
Living in a movie, hot tramp, kind of city cutie, so fine, I'll never see you leaving by the back door. Hot time, forget about the city, I don't mind, but come on up and see me. Ragdoll.
Dude Looked Like a Lady swaggered because of the Joe Perry effect. Ragdoll was all swagger.
It's got an Aerosmith strut about it, and I think it's the only way to put it is strut. And it does relate back to what Aerosmith had done before. What they've given it is a very modern production. So it almost has a brass section on it at one point. It's very much a sort of up-tempo, stylistic, gyrating, twisting song, but it certainly belonged to the Aerosmith canon of the 1970s.
Permanent Vacation is probably the last evidence of any drugs really, you know, entering into Aerosmith's bloodstream. As I understand it, Tom Hamilton was still smoking a couple of bowls of pot a day, as he once said, during the course of the recording of that album. And you know, unusually, you know, Tyler, this drug-addled legend from the past, you know, was so much on the straight and narrow. He just took it to one side and said, "Look, you know, we're recording the album now. Just knock all that on the head and get on with it." You know, so I suppose that shows you how focused Aerosmith had become at that point, and how keen they were to get all this toxicity out of their system.
Somehow, after taking all those drugs, they still looked amazing. Well, Tyler and Perry did, and that's all that mattered because they're up front. So they're looking good. They've got some good hit-sounding, very contemporary-sounding record. It's a quintessential 80s rock record.
Aerosmith finally had a product that can not just appeal to the older fans, but can appeal to a completely new audience as well.
It was a very diverse album. It had quite a celebratory feel to it. You had the feel that this was a band that was back from the brink. They knew that they were now on the verge of greater things. There was a real confidence to it.
This was Aerosmith back in the saddle. This was Aerosmith clean and sober and really rocking to a degree that they hadn't since the 70s. Pump certainly is one of the kind of great rock records. It was another step on the way back from the dark days.
Well, when Aerosmith released Pump in '89, they were on a real roll, and they looked absolutely unstoppable by this time. This was actually as good, if not better, than Permanent Vacation.
Pump is just a superior version of Permanent Vacation, and in many ways, it's, I suppose, in the pantheon of Aerosmith albums, you'd probably say of the modern era Aerosmith, it's far and away the best record since they reformed. There are various reasons for that. I mean, there are great songs on it. Love in an Elevator. How the hell they made that work, I still don't know. It's such a terrible title for a start.
Love in an Elevator really is just a fun song about love and elevators, basically.
I've often wondered if it had been written by an English guy called Love in a Lift, would it have had the same impact as Love in an Elevator? Something very stylistic and very rock and roll about American language sometimes as compared to British, which is maybe why Aerosmith are not a band we actually can emulate over here to a great extent these days.
I'm gonna be a penthouse pauper, gonna be a millionaire, well, I'm gonna be a real fast talker, not be a leather fan, gotta get my timing right, it's a test that I got to pass, well, I'll shake y'all away to Stairway Honey, lick your funky ass, loving it, loving it, loving it up when I'm going down, loving it, loving it, loving it up till I'm upside in the air, honey, one more time, loving it, loving it.
Still a live classic today. It's a great live favourite because it's just a full-on shagalicious moment of sleaze rock history. It's full of things like lots of oh yeahs and a great chorus that gets your fist pumping, constantly springing backwards and forth. Plus, I think people quite like the salacious subject matter and the references to going down and things like that. And just like Dude Looks Like a Lady before it, it's one of those songs that's just never going to go away. You still hear it all the time.
I think it's become one of the foremost and principal songs from that period in Aerosmith's career, which is carried through to this day. And of course, everybody remembers the video and the whole thing that goes with it and the style of the music. Very late 80s, but also Aerosmith being very 1970s at the same time. So with hindsight, and of course it was such a huge hit, you have to say it was a great choice as the first single.
Maybe the devil made me do it. Well, now was the evil leader of the pack. Well, you best believe I had it all and then I blew it. Yeah. Feet of that fucking monkey of a man.
Monkey on My Back is a drug song. The whole thing about Monkey on the Back was always been a thing about the problem about dealing with your drug abuse and trying to get it away from you, trying to get beyond it.
The lyrics are, I had it all, then I blew it just to feed the monkey on my back. And where do you draw the line when all your friends are dying? It's them thinking about what might have been.
Where do you draw the line when all your friends are dying? You got to get that monkey off your back.
Part of the reason why Aerosmith have carried on doing it live to this day, it's almost become an anthem for cleaning out and cleaning up, which they've certainly done over the years. And I think it represents their own struggle to get from where they were in the early 80s as addicts to where they are in the 21st century, cleaned up with a new career.
She ain't got a gun. She ain't got a gun. Her whole world's come undone. Looking straight at the sun. What did her daddy do? What did he put you through? They say when Janie was arrested, they found him underneath the chair. But man, he had it coming. Now that Janie got a gun, he ain't never gonna beat her. Janie got a gun.
Janie's Got a Gun, I think, is quite a serious song for Aerosmith, and basically it's about written by Tyler about a girl who kills her father because he has been sexually abusing her.
Janie's Got a Gun got Aerosmith their first Grammy, and deservedly so. It's a very haunting song about a very serious subject. And what Aerosmith do is tackle it in an Aerosmith way, but they don't make it frivolous. And they actually prove how well they could respect the subject matter without trivializing, but still make it Aerosmith, which I think was a tremendous trick to pull off, because most people would think Aerosmith tackling child abuse, they're somehow not going to be able to do it, or they're going to go so overboard it's going to become a little bit trivial. But they don't do it that way, and they did it so well. I think it thoroughly deserved to be their first Grammy.
A lot of people tend to take Tyler's lyrics as being a little bit of throwaway, but in this particular instance, it's pretty serious stuff indeed.
Run away, run away, go away, run away from the
I think the thing to think about Pump is that at this point, I think the album established Aerosmith. They weren't these out of control bad boys anymore. They've become almost like elder statesmen, you know, with Pump. And they were producing albums of great quality, and they were taking their time over them. And obviously, they didn't have the drug problems of the past. So, you know, I think putting Pump out in the midst of all that hair metal stuff was a cool thing to do.
I love what they did with Pump in one factor and one reason apart from anything else, and that was they had little snippets of instrumentation between the tracks. So you had Dulcimer Stomp, for instance, Water Song. You also had Going Down, which preceded Love in an Elevator. I love the way they did it as an area of continuity. But the tracks as well were far more, I believe, Aerosmith. Aerosmith had learnt a lot from the songwriters they worked with on Permanent Vacation, the likes of Jim Vallance, Desmond Child and Holly Knight. And they took all that on board and pretty much wrote the album by themselves.
The producer has just gone, right, you get on with it, lads. I'll just I'll just record a great rock band playing. I mean, God, it's talk about, you know, beat these young bucks like Bon Jovi at their own game. I mean, it delivered.
Don't try to figure it out. You gotta walk on down, walk on down, walk on down. When you shit out of luck, there's just one thing to do. Walk on down, walk on down, walk on down. When you shit out of luck, there's just one thing to do.
Get a Grip is, I felt was a major disappointment after Pump.
Get a Grip is a slightly formulaic Aerosmith album. It's a good album, but you know, it doesn't really break any new boundaries.
To me, it was a little bit too commercialised. It was the beginning of a period which, unfortunately, I personally feel carries on to this day, in that they're not making very good albums anymore. And I know people will go, how? What? How can you? It's got great songs in there. Living on the Edge, Crying, great numbers. Well, I acknowledge they're very good songs, but I'm not convinced they're very good Aerosmith songs. However, got to say, commercially, the biggest album they ever had.
Pump had been the biggest selling album to date, 7 million copies. Permanent Vacation did 5 million. A Get a Grip topped even Pump, which is incredible. I mean, given that we're at the height now of Seattle-based grunge, when bands like Aerosmith that preferred the big shows, the over-the-top theatrics, were not supposed to be selling albums in any real quantity. Aerosmith were never bigger than they were during the Get a Grip tour. And they headlined Woodstock, they headlined Donington, they were doing all these things as big as they ever were before.
I'm sick of your complaining about how many bills, and I'm sick of all your bitching about your poodles and your pills. And I just can't see no humor about your way of life. And if I can do more for you with this here Fortnite night, eat the rich. There's only one thing you dare do but eat the rich. And one night now come back on the
Eat the Rich was the song that it opened with, which is one of those great gas-guzzling rocking openers, which became a really classic opener for Aerosmith on that tour. Just a great welcome to the show style song.
Eat the Rich was a perfect example of really blazing modern rock and roll, and I think it was the first point where people started to notice that they actually had surpassed the Rolling Stones for the first time.
I was feeling so high, I forgot what day. I'm feeling so low, slow seems way too fast. Now the blues don't work 'cause the trucks ran out of gas. Yeah, I got the fever, 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 got fever. Got plots that you'll be getting from the crack no last. Another meal being on the crack of her ass. We all have dropping out of that tonight.
Get a Grip really was all killer, no filler. You know, it was Aerosmith once again finding the stride that they'd had with rocks, I guess, for the first time. But on this occasion, they had no intention of throwing it all away by misbehaving. They really were in a position to become the greatest rock and roll band in America, if not the world. They've never been stronger. The songs were absolutely incredible, you know, one after the other, bang, bang, bang. Absolutely brilliant.
There's something wrong with the world today. I don't know what it is. Something's wrong with our eyes. Seeing things in a different way, and God knows it ain't his. Showering no surprise. Yeah, we're living on the edge. What's that? Come on, baby, you can do better than that. Louder! Yes!
Standout track to me is Living on the Edge. particularly because of its lyrical content. It was written about the LA riots, the Rodney King thing in the 90s. So you know that's got a message above and beyond what you would normally associate with Aerosmith.
Living on the Edge is probably my favourite track on Get a Grip. I think it's the one track on the album that really does actually see Aerosmith being Aerosmith. Not being Aerosmith trying to appeal to a certain section of the market, but Aerosmith just trying to be themselves.
Living on the Edge is one of their greatest songs, and it really was proof positive of, a band are not enhanced as a band by their use of narcotics and overindulgence. It diminishes them, if anything. And Living on the Edge, there it is. They had lived on the edge, and they'd come out the other side, and it just showed how great they could be without all the accoutrements, the chemical stuff, the medicine cabinet on the road with them. It was a fantastic song, still is.
That kind of loving turns a man to slave. That kind of loving sends a man right to his grave like a crazy, I go crazy. You turn it up, then you go, yeah, you drive me crazy, I go crazy. What can I do? Yeah, I feel like the
I feel it was an album aimed at those who got into the band around 1987, who 6 years later perhaps were more interested in mainstream pop rock than they were in cutting-edge hard rock. They weren't interested in what Pearl Jam and Nirvana were doing at the time, but wanted something that was easy to listen to. And I think Aerosmith made an easy listening album for them.
They obviously got the idea that one-worded power ballads were the future. And in fairness, they had massive radio play, massive MTV rotation and massive sales. So it's easily understandable why they thought that. It's a bit difficult for the Aerosmith purists, however, because these songs are primetime fodder. This is radio rock. These are the kind of songs that you get in Hollywood movies. One or two are fine and possibly quite moving. These are pretty decent songs. But Aerosmith just did one after the other. They just didn't seem to know when to stop.
all I want is someone I can't resist. I know all I need to know by the way that I got kissed. I was crying when I met you. Now I'm trying to forget you. Your love was sweet misery. Yeah, was crying just to get you. Now I'm sad 'cause I let you do what you do down on me. Yeah, now there's not even breathing room. Yeah, between pleasure and pain. You cry when you're not. Must be waiting.
Aerosmith's sort of reliance on the power ballad live, to a certain extent, it's undeniable, really, because these are their most successful contemporary songs. So, when you've got hits like that up your sleeve, you've got to crank them out, particularly for a festival audience, who are there to hear the greatest hits. They're not here to hear some obscurity from Get Your Wings in the early 70s. They want it bang, bang, bang.
Now the word out on the street is the devil's in your kiss. People love goes up in flames, it's a fire, terrorist. I was crying when I met you. Now I'm trying to forget you.
They just got into a formula. They knew that the big power ballads worked, so out they come, and it's just one after another. And they're not even bad songs, but it's not really Aerosmith, is it?
People look at Crying, they look at Crazy, they look at Amazing, and they say, oh, there's a plethora of ballads on this album. You know, they're accusing Aerosmith of selling out again. But, you know, keep up with the program, you know. They're not selling out, they never sold in. Dream On was what got us here in the first place with Aerosmith. Ballads have always been very, very strong part of what they do. Without the money that they got from these ballads, there would be no pyro on the rock tracks, you know. They probably couldn't even afford guitar strings without the money that they made off of those ballads. They certainly couldn't afford all those scarves.
As a whole, you know, Get a Grip was consolidating Aerosmith's career at that point, but it wasn't really pushing it forward. Then again, did it need to? You know, the band had cleaned up, were very established, were these elder statesmen, you know, did they need to up the ante, or did they want to up the ante? You know, that's a question, you know, you'll have to ask them, I suppose.
Let's just put it this way. You've gone out for a few drinks, you get back around a friend's house, you're a bit drunk, and somebody says, put some Aerosmith on. Only a moron would put Get a Grip on. That's going to kill the night. They're stone dead there.
Well, staying in front just to shake your ass. Gonna take the backstage with a drink of my glass. Well, telling me things I can sure understand. 'Cause a month on the road, I'll be coming in your hand.
Aerosmith are the quintessential American hard rock and roll band. Theirs is a story that reads a bit like a rock version of Rocky. The ups, the downs, they've won it, they've lost it all in the most elaborate and grotesque way, and they've won it all again.
Aerosmith are clearly a superstar heritage rock act who really don't have to make any good albums anymore to still keep playing monster gigs. I mean, the fact that their summer 2007 shows are in Hyde Park kind of tells you everything you know about the stature of Aerosmith.
They're finally coming back to Europe for the first time in a decade, and they've got plans for a new studio album. I don't see why Aerosmith can't go on and, in a way, emulate the Rolling Stones to come back to them by coming out towards 40, 45, maybe even 50 years. There's no reason why not.
Amazingly, it took them so long to become a household name in Britain, but now they're just as big here as they are in America. You know, they're seen as they're an event act, aren't they, that people will go and see because they know they're one of the classic bands like the Rolling Stones. So they finally got there. They became the Rolling Stones, didn't they? Which is a nice thing for them.
It's taken Aerosmith about 3 decades of playing catch up to the Stones, but by virtue of the fact they're that little bit younger, I think they're the only real credible pretenders to the throne, I guess, of the Stones' greatest rock and roll band in the world tag, which, you know, on the right night, Aerosmith probably got that as well.
There's one thing that's for sure, that you know that if you pay for a ticket to see Aerosmith live, it's never going to sound anything other than great.
If you wanted to define American hard rock and roll at its best, then look at Aerosmith. If you wanted to point to one particular album to define what American hard rock has to offer, look at Rocks, because as Joe Perry says, it does.